meeting of the Parks and Downtown Improvement Corporation, and I'll ask us to stand as Hillary leads us in an invocation.
Y'all would bow with me. Lord, we just come to you today and thank you so much for this day and for the weather, and especially for the rain that we've received this week. We ask that you be present with us in this meeting as we make decisions, that you would guide our direction, and ultimately, Lord, that we would be a reflection of you and be good stewards of this committee. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. If you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right, I'd like to welcome all of our guests this morning who drove way farther than we did to get here. We appreciate your efforts on a Friday morning at 8 a.m. None of us chose the time for this meeting, but we do acknowledge you made extra effort. That's right. Glad y'all are here. We will not waste any of your time, I assure you. I would like to ask everyone to review the minutes from the last meeting, and I'll open the floor for any corrections.
Okay, Raylan, are we simply going to recommend corrections?
Go ahead and recommend that, then we'll have the minutes brought back next month.
Okay, Bruce Wood was not here. And we need to change Matt to Patty.
Oh, yeah. We'll get that.
Any other additions or corrections to the minutes? All right, hearing none, we'll...
Did we have visitors last time? Under 4, it said no visitors came forward to speak.
Oh, we had...
I don't recall if that was
Imaginary
last month or
Lines.
month before. I think we did,
Your
though.
visitor was the month before.
Okay.
Imaginary Lines was here, but that would have been part of one
Part
of
of
the
the agenda.
action
Okay,
items.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank
so.
you. Thank you, Matt. All right, moving forward to new business, we are to discuss and consider design documents and bid specifications for downtown landscape project. For that, I'll call on Raylan.
Perfect. So we do have some updates, but there were a few things that I wanted to kind of let you know what we've been working with just internally with staff. Lots of discussion on street lamps. And staff recommendation is going to be at this point, based on the budget and the amount of funds that are allocated for street lamps, because we don't have the base necessary to do the height of the lights that we want. And if we're having to redo the bases, is it really at the location that you want, or would you prefer it closer to the building? Because then you're looking at, does it face the street or does it face the sidewalk? So in talking with Mr. Sims yesterday, he had a really good recommendation. We will be moving forward with a design on Spur 226. And so what we could do is put a pause on street lamps along 80 and really put some concentration and good thought and design into the street lamps on Spur 226, which would then give us the building dimension to repeat it on Highway 80. So one thing that I have asked Jamie Clow with the Public Works Department to do is find out from me how much it would cost to replace just the globe on the street lamps. So maybe if we just updated it with a new globe, I think some of them are discolored. We may need some paint. I mean, there's some sprucing up to our existing lamps that I think that we could do now, and then really come forward with some different options and look at some of those design aspects that I feel like we're kind of pushing ourselves into a decision right now based on location and the bases that we have. And so it might be beneficial to pause on street lamps for Highway 80 until we determine those design factors for Virginia or Spur 226. And with that being said, because of the savings, and I'm fixing to let Kimberly Horn take over, because of the savings in the street lamps, one option that Sims wanted Kimberly Horn to look at is the cost if instead of covering the planter boxes along there, the median, where we know we already have one missing, how much it would be to cut the concrete within that median and actually make that a planter, the entire median. So they're gonna bring that budget to you now. And it'll add some trees there in the center, et cetera. So those were just a couple of things that we wanted to make sure we discussed and got some consensus moving forward for bid docs next week. So we've got Andy and Glenn and Patrick, all three here. And bless their hearts, they have been turning things around. They have made tons of progress on this project.
So we should have another document, the overall, the roll plot, and it shows the alternate to do planting in the median. Yep, that one. Yeah, so this shows an alternate with the median planting of taking out those existing brick planters and the concrete and putting in new landscape and trees in that entire median. So we kind of ran a cost analysis, and with the previous option of doing the steel covering over the brick planters and then adding new landscape in there and new trees, that was around 100,000, and our analysis to do this option would be about 150. So it's a little bit of increase, but with the savings from taking out the light poles, we would still be able to keep it in budget, so. We have some different options that we can look at.
Can you pull up the packet?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So right now we had current plan before we had some ornamental trees in there, but I know there has been some discussion, desire to have larger trees and preferably some evergreen larger trees. So we could look at live oaks. There's some pine trees, magnolias. There's a few different options we can look at. Do you have the other one that was on that hard drive? Yeah, that one. If you go to the third page, I think. Yeah, so that one is some alternate tree types. So the live oak, Arizona cypress, and then I know Mr. Sims mentioned the Afghan pine. So the one that furthest on the right, I think is kind of in line with what he's thinking. So, but I believe all of these are on the Terrell approved tree list too. So we've started with that list for recommended street trees.
We have a tree expert on our board.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do have a comment on that.
Yeah,
Trees in a median are great, but if you put a tree as big as a live oak or southern magnolia or basically any of these, anybody driving down the street, that tree is gonna block the business's vision
yeah,
to see who's on the other side. So if you went with a more slender tree, like maybe a little gem magnolia,
okay,
where it's more conical,
yeah,
then that wouldn't be so visually impacted with the businesses on the other side. Because these are huge trees. They
Yep.
won't get as big as they're supposed to because of the environment.
yes,
But they'll still block your businesses on the other side.
Yep.
They're also gonna cause a maintenance issue with, you're gonna have trucks driving down.
Yep.
And you're gonna have a tree that looks like this, because the trucks are gonna cut that tree when they drive down.
Yep.
So something the more conical that would stay within the perimeter of the median and not need so much maintenance is what I would recommend.
yep. I don't disagree. So I think those are good options. We had, I think originally we had some Vitex in there that would be more ornamental, smaller size.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
And there's some Colliner bald cypress that maybe would work.
Bald cypress?
Yeah.
No.
No? Okay.
The reason I don't like bald cypress, I'm sorry,
Tell them about your experience.
I worked for City of Garland Parks for
Okay.
almost 20 years, and I've done landscaping all my life.
Yep.
It's a hobby, but it's done me well. Bald cypresses are a beautiful tree. They really are, but they're made for streams,
Mm-hmm.
boggy banks, that sort of thing. They require a lot of water. There's 2 species that are bought in Texas, and I could not find them. Maybe y'all can with your arborist. One is good for Texas and one is not. One is a darker green, which I think that's the one that's more suitable for Texas. The lighter green is not. I can't find out what the species the difference are. But a bald cypress gets huge.
Yeah,
If you go to McGinney's Hardware, there's a bald cypress on his property. And you can see what the intent of that tree is. Now, that tree would not get that big, being in the environment that it is.
Yep.
But I think from the plans, as best as I could tell, you were planning on putting those on Catherine, the four corners of Catherine and
Yeah.
Moore. And I've gotten out of my truck and I walked it, and that area is not big enough for that tree, for what that tree is supposed to be. So it would impede on the buildings and it would impede on the street and the sidewalk.
yep. Well,
Because you have to have a 14-foot at
Yeah.
least clearance.
and with the room that we have and the amount of bed space, none of those trees will get as big in that
No,
condition,
it won't
but,
get close.
we can look at some alternates.
Yeah.
What kind of tree would you like to see?
I suggest Chinese pistache,
Okay. In the median or at the corners?
probably on the corners.
Okay,
I would go with more of a conical on the median.
Yep.
To cut down your maintenance and your vision, you know, to keep your visual. 'Cause I'd be mad if I owned a business on this side and only half the streets could see it,
yep,
you know? So,
And I think too, so we have kind of the old plan and then the new plan. In the old plan, there were 5 total trees in that median. So when I'm looking at the new proposal, I do think we need to be conscious of that and not just stack them one on top of the other. I think we
Yep.
need some clearance between them so you do retain those sight lines, because we don't want it to get to the point where it looks overgrown all of a sudden, you know?
yeah, there's a tendency to overplant,
Oh,
oh, yeah, for sure.
That was
big time.
one of the things, when I looked at it, it looks like an awful lot of trees in that amount of space to me. And if we do fewer trees and maybe something smaller in between them that wouldn't get to so tall.
Yep,
I remember during the Complete Streets presentation, one of the concepts, or one of the drivers behind median trees is actually to slow the traffic down. And to your point, we wouldn't be able to see, if I'm in the, West End lane, wouldn't be able to see businesses on the other side to an extent. But I do like the idea that trees are gonna naturally make people a little more nervous, and they're gonna slow down the traffic right there. If you look at this diagram, the reason that median's the widest is because that's the longest stretch between blocks that we have in downtown. That's where people pick up speed. So, I very much value your opinion, because you're on the other side of this, Patty. You know how these trees survive and don't, and the maintenance required. But I would like to see as much of a, not a solid wall, but a grove, if you will, in that stretch, as long as they're not on top of each other.
Chinese pistache is a really pretty ornamental tree. It's not a big tree, doesn't get huge, but it's got wispy branches. It moves in the air. It's got some very good characters for it. It's even pretty when it's not.
well, and
Yeah.
it does well in any conditions. I mean, you don't need
Foliage.
Very
Fall
drought
color.
tolerant.
Let's see. Oh,
And I even saw, there was an interview this morning on Fox News, sorry, but in the background of City Hall, of Dallas City Hall, there was bald cypresses that they planted recently, and they look like they're relatively new. And if y'all just kind of maybe look at that, it's Lawrence Jones' interview with the mayor of Dallas. You can see that those are smaller bald cypresses, but they're huge. They're large canopies. So that's only mine. You do what you want, that's mine.
We appreciate
No, we
your input.
value the input. It's landscape and trees, everybody has an opinion, so it's,
I don't
everybody's
know
opinion.
anything about trees, but I am nervous about what is at the base of this, mulch or
Of,
of the
in
median?
the median,
Yeah.
it would be, we would probably want to have some sort of border, so you don't have mulch right up to the curb, whether it's pavers or gravel. But yeah, the ground cover would be plants and ground cover and with mulch, so. But we could do a gravel instead of mulch, if that's a concern.
One thing that we're going to have to address is making sure that we've got some pavers, because the obvious thing is people are not going to go down to Francis or Rockwall to cross. And so we've got to make sure that we allow for some pavers
Through
within
the
the plan
median.
also.
For our jaywalkers?
Yeah.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, we
maybe
need to
they'll
make
at
it
least
safe.
stick to the plan rather than marching through.
Well, I know, we're working on a,
No, we won't call it that.
Yeah.
we're working on a project in Frisco that's similar, and they're wanting to put an actual barrier in there to prevent people from doing it, just so you force people to cross at the
I don't
intersections and
think it's
crosswalks.
gonna be a huge ordeal, but as it stands right now, people are creatures of habit. So
And it's not high traffic, but
It's the Pritchett's, because they've got businesses on the other side of that median.
nobody's until Doug Pritchett Senior, he's got to go all the way down.
I personally
go ahead.
like, sorry, Tori. I personally like the idea of the smaller magnolias, just because those do give such a pretty rich, like, they're pretty all year long. And they do flower out in certain seasons, so I like that idea.
Okay, so
Not messy.
if there are going to be trees here and you're taking out all the planters, what happens where the other planters are? Are,
On the streetscape side, they're still doing the covering over them, but leaving
Okay.
those in place.
okay.
So after that feedback, what are we thinking for corner trees versus median trees?
I think
we land?
corner trees, we can look at the Chinese pistache. The median trees, I like the idea of magnolias, because then they give you some evergreen, and we can look at some smaller ones like the Little Jim or D.D. Blanchard, they don't get quite as big. And then the rest of the street trees, where we have lace bark elms, I don't know what,
That's a good choice.
you like the lace bark elms? Okay. Well, I know Mr. Sims was concerned about those.
We're in the meeting.
What?
Okay,
He likes lace bark. They're pretty.
he was concerned about them, so.
And I think Patty's comment about the magnolias don't make a mess, I think that's something we should consider, especially on those corner trees, like something like a pine that's gonna make a mess.
Yeah.
Probably we don't wanna put it at a cornerstone where it
Yep.
looks messy, so something
Wall
that
cypresses
holds
are
more
very
structure.
messy, and they have those balls on them. If you've ever been hit by one, it
And
hurts.
I'm thinking something that's gonna be low maintenance, that's not going to cause a traffic hazard of vehicles hitting them, and one that doesn't shed so many leaves that you have a maintenance issue with that too. But as far as the species of trees, I can't really help with that.
And, yeah, I like bald cypress too, and agree they can't get out of scale. I like them in some of these conditions just because they're a little bit of a lighter tree, and I don't feel like they block views as much, but, I agree.
Need a little bit more room.
Yeah.
The lace bark elms are really a pretty tree. They have great bark. But the birds do love them. So don't park under them.
Interesting.
Well, we could, just to get a little bit more variety, maybe mix it up and do some lace bark, some cedar elms, because cedar elms will do. well in-
Exactly. They do the same thing.
Anything is better than the hackberry trees that we have.
I don't think I've ever planted a hackberry tree.
Do I recall that part of your plan as well, I was really excited to hear about the planters that would be strategically placed in front of businesses?
Yes.
Is that part of this presentation?
Yeah, there should be, if you go to the other one, we have, so it would be on the right side. They're gonna be self-watering planters, so you have to fill them up every once in a while. But, yeah, we'll have, I think the budget has about 30
Oh, nice.
self-watering planters that we've put at some of the intersections and then in some of the storefronts.
Okay. How do we go about selecting where to put those?
If you go to that large plan, the other PDF.
Are we talking about plants or where?
Where the planters will go? Which businesses, how far they're spaced?
You might have to zoom in quite a bit. Or that other one that was right. The one you have up right before.
There you go.
Yeah, and if you zoom in on that,
Okay, the little green dots.
yeah, you can kind of see them right in front of the storefront.
And what are the scale of those gonna be? I mean, is it gonna be like a Home Depot pot, or is it gonna be like, you can't walk off with our pots we paid for?
They're gonna be big enough. They're gonna be really hard to pick up and move. So, they're gonna be heavy.
Somebody will figure out how to do
They're
it.
not gonna be like the giant 5-foot, but they'd be like probably 3 foot wide,
Okay.
so.
And with dirt and water and plant, maybe they'll be too heavy.
So you can see we have those, and those can be, the final locations can kind of be set in the field. But we kind of gave a relative idea of where we thought they would go, so. But I think, kind of selectively locating those between stores, and aligning them with columns and kind of where they make sense architecturally.
One thing I do want to mention is we did determine, I think it was there on Catherine, it has that raised flower bed, and it kind of sits differently than the other four corners. So right there at Bass Pro, you've got a raised bed. We are going to go in and
Bass Rutledge.
we are going to go in and demo that and make it to where it'll match the other four corners. Yeah, so anywhere there was just some weird things going on, we tried to clean that up a little bit too.
Any chance we're doing new trash cans with this? Okay, I thought so. Do I understand the planting schedule is December?
That's the goal.
Okay.
That's scary when he says that's the goal.
Sure.
Yeah, we're wrapping up our plans, and we'll have a bid set ready by end of next week. And then we'll start that process.
Okay, Raylan, if we take the wrapping off of, that you talked about, and we're putting trees there, tell me about what that does to the budget.
So currently, your medians in the budget were about 50,000. And so what you would, I think whenever we calculated it, it was going to be an additional 50,000 to get the entire median done versus just the planters.
That would
It's a
include,
$50,000 difference.
include the demo and the new.
And we're taking the light poles out. And
So you actually gain 276,000 with that. So now you've reduced your total budget by 220,000.
Will help us, allow us to do larger trees on day one, and then allow us to do those streetscape, or the storefront planters.
Are those storefront planters going to be seasonal plantings, or, and I guess the Parks Department's going to be responsible for that?
We're going to release an RFP for downtown maintenance. We're going to have an annual maintenance contractor come in.
Oh, you are?
for those, yeah.
But
Okay,
it-
so they'll be responsible for maintenance of those and
Yeah, that'll fall under the downtown
Replacing
office. Yeah.
plant replacement and everything?
And so TERS picks up the maintenance of anything that goes in for downtown. So they increased my office budget to do the full maintenance of all of this, the annual maintenance.
Do I understand you to say we're leaving some money on the table? We voted for $500,000? Okay. Do you have any ideas for how that should be spent, allocated?
Well, I would suggest that all of this is ballpark figures. We will be doing some alt bids for different diameter of trees.
Okay.
So when the bids come back, y'all will have a few more decisions to make. But just know with these changes, it looks, you've already reduced your budget by 220. But it may, like he said, it may give us an opportunity to go ahead and purchase a larger caliber tree, or, if we wanted to add. So,
Have we thought about including, like, not on a grand scale, but some landscape lighting with these, like some uplighting for the trees? So at night it has a little more.
we could come back and do that separately. We could get quotes for that after the fact. I think that, I'm sure y'all have recommendations of how we could continue to address this up.
Yeah, we could look at that. I think the challenge is gonna be getting electrical out there.
But I waited to do that until South Alley went under construction, because there's no sense in tearing up something. So we were gonna do this one, do it big, and we're just gonna tear up everything at one time. So, we will be adding some electrical to cover.
Well, yeah, then we could do uplights, and I think having some outlets where you could do all-day lighting is always
Good.
good. Long Street's good.
Because you had talked about needing maybe some extra outlets for the downtown events too.
It would be
So-
helpful to have them for speakers, you have to move them to a different location, that kind of thing.
What was the cost of, or I guess we didn't settle on a cost for lampposts? For,
Your budget was 250,
okay,
so, and that was for 21 or 22 streetlights.
okay.
So,
When do you think you're gonna do the streetlights? I mean, are they gonna be done at all?
we're gonna get quotes to just have the shades
I
replaced.
know, but in the future?
In the future, yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Once we decide, or you decide, the design elements for Spur 226, then we would know the baseline to take that same lighting down more.
So shouldn't we put that money in reserve to pay for it in the future?
We do have plenty in reserve.
Okay.
I don't want to necessarily
Can we do it,
mark it in case other funding comes available, yeah.
can we do it backwards, or we do Moore Avenue first and then do Virginia based on Moore Avenue?
The problem is you don't know what kind of base you need, and there's really not enough time to make all the decisions for the street lamps right now, because some of the examples, some of what y'all really like, is actually lighting closer to the buildings. You know, you've got the hangover, and so the question is, does it hang over to the parking lot, or does it hang over to the sidewalk? And what we really don't know is what the base, the actual foundation of those street lamps is. And so we would have to tear that up anyway. And so it would bust your $250,000 budget to do a street lamp that you wanted right now. Because we know that if you're going taller, you've got to have a bigger foundation. And at that point, is the location correct? Because then maybe we look at doing, you know, a complete relocate for all of them if you're gonna change that. And so I think with the timeline that we've got right now, that would definitely be a project that we can continue to work on. And if your suggestion is that we go ahead and let's keep moving forward with the 80 street lamps, that's great. But not necessarily make it a part of this bid package.
I'd rather model Virginia after Moore, if we could, just my opinion.
Well, I think we can look at setting what that fixture is and having it set, and then it can be implemented anywhere. But
Yeah.
to Raylan's point, those existing poles are 10 feet height, and we don't know exactly what that pier depth is, but typically they're designed based on that height. And to increase it to an 18 to 20-foot tall pole would need significantly larger pier depth. You wouldn't be able to reuse it existing, so.
And Raylan, when we talked about this, because we all know that eventually Moore Avenue is going to completely change. And so we still don't know what that's going to change to. So when we're talking about the trees, I would just ask that, you know, we wanted to not spend money that we were just going to end up ripping out 5 years later. And I want us to keep that consistent. I don't want us to spend money we're throwing away just because we have money to spend. I don't think that's a good direction. So if these medians are going to be part of all 5 future plans, then great, let's do it. Okay.
Absolutely. And also your four corners, I mean, we're staying within what would be, we would always have to stay within the existing easements and right-of-ways as it stands. And so when you look at just doing your four corners or even where your planters are, that would still be your building line for the future. And that median in all the plans was never recommended to be changed. So,
Allison, when is the Christmas parade?
December the 9th.
Bear that in mind. No pressure.
We start on December the 11th.
Yeah, there you go.
we're not gonna make the parade this year, but by Christmas,
You did promise us there would be wine bar by parade. Okay.
I mean, let's be real, that's really what matters. We love the landscape, but wine bar is a huge step too.
Any other questions for our design team?
So the next steps will be, we're just gonna update council on Tuesday. And really, I'm updating them to let them know because they have, these poor guys know, we have to meet to discuss and then we meet to take action. And so I'm going to use Tuesday as my discussion, knowing that when I bring this back to you in 30 days, like, it's to take action on a contract. So that's really why I'm taking the opportunity on Tuesday, and I'm just kind of laying out what the schedule's gonna look like. And so once Paddock gives the green light, we're just following protocol, and I need y'all to.
Got it.
I would suggest, if you're ready to show us the contract documents before 30 days, that we have another meeting and not wait.
Oh, so your next Paddock meeting, we did it backwards from the next Paddock meeting. So
Okay.
we'll get the bids in, I think it's 2 days before your next
Oh,
Paddock
okay.
meeting. So the next meeting, y'all will have your bid amounts to look at.
What recommendations on
Yeah.
the bids and the alternatives and anything?
And then it immediately goes to council the following Tuesday.
I just don't want us to delay anything because of meeting dates.
When you do a project like this, are the trees and shrubs typically warranted, guaranteed? Yes, okay.
We'll get a year.
Okay.
Patty, on the shrubs, grasses, and ground cover, anything in there that you think is a no?
Prairie verbenas are a kind of a hit and miss. The blue grandma is gonna reseed like crazy, depending on where you put it. It's a big reseeder, but for me, red yucca is the plant for high heat medians. I mean, that plant is awesome.
It's not on here. Oh, yes.
So,
Yeah.
and it's, it's easy to, as long as you don't plant it too close to the curb, you're good. But that was the only comments I had about that ground cover.
Yeah, we can look at an alternate for the verbena. We're trying to get a little bit of color in there.
Yeah.
And the Texas sage, we really don't have a whole lot of people around here that plant that, but I know like in Fort Worth, it's everywhere, and that gives you the color. So I think that's great.
All right. Any final thoughts? Thank you all very much.
We know enough to keep moving. How about that?
That's right. Keep moving. Keep the momentum. Anything else for us, Raylan?
I have a question.
Yes, Sarah.
When I came through town last week at night, I noticed that there was one section of buildings that didn't have lights.
Yes, because someone had unplugged them. And so we went and we plugged them back in, and then they came back on.
I haven't been back there.
No, and that, I'm laughing because like, we literally, and everyone has been so patient, we do have extension cords all over the place to keep these lights up, but honestly, we've got some meters that have to be placed, and knowing that this was fixing to happen and South Alley was fixing to be torn up, I didn't want to pay people 3 times to mobilize. So anyway, yes, we just went and plugged them back in. So my favorite one is Nell. I think now she thinks it's a joke, because about every 2 or 3 days, I'll drive through around 7 in the morning and I'll plug it back in. And then a couple of days later, I'll realize that it's been unplugged and like laid to the side. So like no one, like, so she and I go back and forth on her light.
Let her know.
Can we get a label maker that says, do not unplug down the side of it?
So anyway, it's kind of funny, but yeah. So yeah, anytime, if y'all see something out, just let me know, because,
Plug it in.
yeah, I mean, or just plug it in.
All right. Hearing nothing else,